Hey guys, and welcome back to Talk Share Sports for Tuesday. That means we are talking the NBA. We're going to continue our little back and forth of the West and the East, talking and breaking down the off seasons of the teams. Today we are talking about 7, 8, and 9 in the West, so that will be the Spurs, Clippers, and Kings. So without further ado, let's get right to it, starting with the first losers, the Kings. The Kings finished 9th and just missed the playoffs last year. The team looks ahead with a formidable backcourt in Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox. Probably a top 5 backcourt in the league. These guys are fast, they've got good scoring potential, so they run the court really well. The rest of the starting 5 is most likely rounded out with Harrison Barnes, who they re-signed this offseason, Marvin Bagley III, who's looking to improve off of a solid rookie season where he had a bench role, but now most likely will be starting, and Dwayne Dedmon, who was also signed in the offseason and is probably coming off the best year of his career yet. Beyond the starting lineup, the Kings have done a really good job to shore up the depth of the team. Really, the bench looks really good. They signed guys like Corey Joseph, Trevor Ariza, and Rashawn Holmes to provide depth. Ariza and Joseph factor as great first guys off the bench, along with the greatest name in the NBA, Bogdan Bogdanovic. That's right. While Rashawn Holmes at least provides a serviceable player to come in relief of Dedmon. All told, the Kings have a nice roster that doesn't have too many glaring holes. Through the draft, they added guys like Justin James and Kyle Guy, who could turn into added guard depth at the very least for the Kings. That being said, while it was a pretty good offseason and while the roster looks good, it's kind of tough to give the Kings a playoff spot next year. Expect them to probably finish right here or maybe just in the playoffs, because the West could be pretty competitive regardless. Expect them to push hard.
Shadow.
All right, next up is the Los Angeles Kawhi Leonards. Just kidding, because unlike Toronto, Kawhi isn't going to actually have to throw the entire team on his back to win the title. So we are talking about the Clippers. Now, the Clippers midseason traded Tobias Harris to the Sixers in what felt like a move signaling a white flag for their season, but they ended up making the playoffs, which is insane. We're not here to talk about last season, we're here to talk about the offseason. First, the Clippers took on Maurice Harkless and his contract, along with a first-round pick to help facilitate the Jimmy Butler trade that happened during the offseason. Clippers then broke the internet and the spirits of the Lakers when they signed Kawhi Leonard, and they didn't stop there because they also got Paul George from the Thunder, sending Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari along with 5 first-round picks. They did well to re-sign Patrick Beverley and Ivica Zubac to help round out the starting 5, along with Montrezl Harrell. It's not perfect, but with guys like Leonard and George, it doesn't need to be. Beyond that, there is solid depth. They got Lou Williams and Landry Shamet, who provide some scoring off the bench, and Harkless and JaMychal Green are both serviceable. Beyond that, they looked to add depth in the draft, and they, at the center position specifically, drafted Mfiondu Kabengele. Probably said that wrong. He's a little undersized for a center, but it's depth. There are reports also that in the past week they signed Patrick Patterson, who would also be a solid off-the-bench player for them. So overall, Clippers had a really good offseason, especially because they brought in a guy like Leonard and a guy like George. Look for them to make the playoffs even with their less than perfect roster. All right, last but not least, we have the Spurs. And all I can say is this is a very Spurs-esque team. On paper, they aren't spectacular, but the depth and players that are there should all work well together and be a playoff caliber team at the very least. So what did they do this offseason, and why do they already look good? They didn't do much, and honestly, that was a good thing. They received Damari Carroll for Davis Bertans, re-signed Rudy Gay, and signed Trey Lyles. Those 3 moves. Roster overall is good, and the players on the team are good. No one player is spectacular, but a starting 5 with LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, and Rudy Gay isn't bad. DeJounte Murray and Patty Mills showed they can ball out when called upon. So along with Derek White and Bryn Forbes, The guard situation isn't too shabby either. Damari Carroll and Trey Lyles have helped provide depth at the forward positions, and Jacob Poeltl, I mean, he's a backup center, so he's good enough. Especially with a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge, you don't need a star coming off the bench there. They have even more depth when you look at Lonnie Walker and Marco Bellinelli, because they're two guys who can come in and make it rain from downtown. So don't expect too much of this team, expect just enough, because it wouldn't be the NBA postseason without the San Antonio Spurs. Alright, that does it for this week. Tune in next week to hear about 6, 5, and 4 over in the East.